First time I smoked crack, it was out of a water bottle. You know, the pipe, and you put water in.
Yeah. She talked about how she would intentionally avoid doing drugs during her career because her dad had a really bad addiction to weed, crack, and alcohol.
I smoked crack from a water bottle for the first time. You put water in the pipe, you know. She mentioned how her dad music had a severe addiction to booze, crack, and marijuana, thus, she would purposefully abstain from using drugs during her career. Nikki spent her entire professional life witnessing the devastation caused by her father's addiction before experiencing it herself. Sparky D was high on crack and missed her mother's final moments. Additionally, there are other rappers on this list with a severe drug addiction issue. You've probably never heard of the majority of them until now. Minaj, Nicki. Nicki Minaj was a woman in this game who had every incentive to abstain from narcotics. She read more than simply about the effects addiction can have on a family. It was her home. Robert Mirage, her father, battled crack cocaine for years. Additionally, Nicki as a young child in Queens, I witnessed that firsthand. She decided right away that this was not going to be her life. She drew and adhered to a hard line. That line held for a very long period. Nicki's career was progressing quickly. She sold out performances all over the world, stacked platinum records, and became the first female rapper to have 7 singles on the Billboard Hot 100 simultaneously. In such a kind of existence, there was no room for what she had seen her father destroyed. However, a doctor prescribed Percocet to assist her in dealing with the severe menstrual pain she was experiencing, the kind that would stop you in your tracks. Early in her career, she was living in Atlanta, and since the medications were effective, she continued using them. She was not informed by anyone in that room about the true nature of Percocet, or the potential effects of music on someone who continued to grasp for it after the pain had subsided. She stated that initially, she was taking them to relieve her pain, but later eventually, she discovered that she was taking them when she wasn't required to. She was also unaware that this drug was so highly addictive. Fortunately, though, she managed to ground herself. However, she claims that once an addict, always an addict when it comes to music. She made it clear in her 2023 Vogue cover story. I was unaware that this substance was addicting and a narcotic. Fortunately, I managed to ground myself. However, once an addict, one will always be addicted to music. Without a recovery program or outside assistance, she managed to get herself out. Simply disciplined. However, she has never pretended that her desire for music has completely subsided. She claims that even now, she still needs to consider some options twice, or even 3 times. The woman who spent her entire career attempting to avoid becoming her father ultimately faced the same battle as him, albeit in a different manner. Rogers from China. From the start, China music Rogers moved quickly. She was born in Philadelphia in 1994, and by the time she was 14, she was already modeling for well-known companies like DKNY, traveling to New York on the weekends while still enrolled in school. Although that world is difficult for young people, she persevered and eventually made her way into the music industry through ASAP Mob, where ASAP Yams took her under his wing and served as her mentor. Before most others did, he was the one who had faith in her music. Was aware of her name. In 2015, she witnessed him pass away from a heroin overdose. She was deeply affected by the loss, and it remained with her. Her opiate addiction had already taken a serious toll on her life by the beginning of 2016, fueled by years of suppressing her emotions and enduring suffering, since that's what people from her background do. She discussed the kind of thinking that kept her trapped in music in a 2018 Pitchfork interview. I hadn't left through enough horrible experiences to merit a career in this field. I simply couldn't connect with enough music fans. Somewhere deep down, she had persuaded herself that the cost of being a true artist was actual suffering. She attended treatment, got 90 days of sobriety, and celebrated by naming a whole mixtape after those 90 days. She returned with more strength. Then music died in 2017, precisely 365 days after she completed her rehabilitation, as if the universe were putting her to the ultimate test. China Rogers was discovered unresponsive in her Philadelphia home on April 8, 2020. Her age was 25. It was an unintentional drug overdose, according to the Philadelphia Department of Health. Katie was banned. The IDAB, Wells Projects on 39th Street on Chicago's South Side, where Katie Got Bands was born, are the type of place where being soft is not tolerated. It makes you resilient, or it shatters you. In 2012, at the age of 18, Katie broke into Chicago's drill scene with her song, I Need a Hitter, while still employed at a fast food restaurant. People could tell right away that she was putting all of her project energy into her music. However, maintaining a tough exterior does not always shield you from the internal conflict. After losing both her grandma and her, and at the same time, Katie began using Percocet to help her cope with her grief and anxiety. The agony was made worse by the drugs. Go silent for a long time, and she kept returning to it because it felt so good. It wasn't until I told them that I wasn't off that anyone noticed that I wasn't twitching my mouth or eyes. I did, in fact. You know, it was also a call for assistance. I started losing people to FN, one day, and it terrified me. No one nearby could even detect that she was using it since she kept it so concealed. No trembling, no clear indications, nothing. She stated aloud that the entire situation was a scream for assistance that went unanswered. People in her immediate vicinity withdrew rather than supporting her when she eventually opened up to them. Then, in 2017, fentanyl began murdering people she had actually met and shared rooms with, and something clicked. Music, her name might have been that. People were sobbing. She abruptly quit with no rehabilitation and no program behind her. She simply endured the withdrawal symptoms on her own, including perspiration, itching, and insomnia, and emerged unscathed. She claims that giving up helped her regain the concentration she had lost when immersed in her music. Sparky D. Nowadays, the majority of new hip-hop fans have never heard of Sparky D. That's where her story's true tragedy lies. Doreen Broadnax was born and she was one of the first women to enter the battle rap scene in Brownsville, Brooklyn, in 1965. While still a teenager in the mid-1980s, she went bar for bar with Roxanne Shante Music in the Roxanne Wars. Before they were old enough to cast ballots and before most people could even conceive a woman competing in that arena, these 2 young Brooklyn girls were selling out arenas. Everything halted when crack entered her life. I used a water bottle to smoke crack for the first time. Music, you fill the pipe with water and are familiar with it. Yes. What was your age? I was 19 music years old. However, my significant other in terms of music was Spider D. Additionally, Encore in Queens was a club located across the street. And all I did was run home for something. I'm not sure if the Encore hosted a large rap party. What are you doing? I asked Spider D. Oh, you have to try this, he remarked. Music, you know it's good. This is crazy. Okay, let me just see, I said. Hitting that crack cocaine was the worst thing I could have done. The first time she hit it, she was 19 years old. She was also expected to give her mother $1,000 that evening so she could enjoy a holiday. Brooklyn was never reached by her. Her mother passed away the following day. According to Sparky, she used crack cocaine for the next 17 years because she felt guilty about missing the trip and not being able to offer her mother that money. 17 years. One of the ladies who laid the groundwork for this entire culture was in crack houses in Virginia, waking her own daughter up at 3 in the morning to eat lunch while Queen Latifah and Eve were rising and bringing hip-hop to new locations. Cash so she could go get stoned. Sparky could not bring herself to go, so Roxanne Shante herself had to enter a crack house and take Sparky's kids out to keep them safe for a week. After sobbing on a street corner with her infant daughter strapped to her back and pleading with people for cents, she eventually cleaned up in 2004. That was the pivotal moment. From there she gradually rebuilt, and now she travels the world as a speaker and apostle. Evidence that even the story does not end with 17 years of addiction. Eve Music seemed to have it figured out. Born in Philadelphia in 1978, she was a rough music writer, a Grammy winner, and the star of her own television program, Real Crossover Success, during a period when female rappers were not often given such attention. Most people assumed she was doing well and living well somewhere when she took a break from rap in the middle of the 2000s. She was not doing well at all. I've had it and not I went through a dark hole, as she puts it, at one point in my life, but not in that way, not in a cutting way, but through music. I refer to it as my dark hole phase. My dark time. Music. I had left a terrible relationship. I didn't have a television program. I had no record deal. I was wondering what was going on in my life. I started drinking music a lot as a result. Because I didn't want to cope with my feelings, I started drinking nonstop. I had no one with whom I could truly communicate. Music. Well, I was taking Xanax and drinking to help me feel better. Additionally, I was not aware that I was hurting myself at the time I was in it. Around the same period, she had lost her record deal, her TV show, and a difficult relationship. Additionally, she didn't have someone around that she could truly confide in. What she was experiencing. She began drinking as a result. And the alcohol consumption increased. She also added Xanax to music. She didn't even realize that she was injuring herself from the inside out, but she convinced herself that was just coping. She was ultimately shaken out of it by the DUI. She was compelled to slow down, sit by herself, and deal with the situation because of the ankle monitor they had on her. Actual. When the fame was gone and no one was looking, she prayed her way through it, entered therapy, and worked hard to discover her true self. She recovered from the 2013 album, her marriage, and her employment on television. However, none of that would have occurred if she hadn't been forthright enough to acknowledge that she had been struggling while everyone else believed she was alright. Gangster Boo Lola Mitchell joined the 36 Mafia at the age of 14, after DJ Paul found her at a high school in Memphis. 14, she entered a group that was centered on violence and gloom. On albums that people still listen to today, she held her own from the very first lyric, going bar for bar with the men in her immediate vicinity. She joined Mystic Styles at the age of 15, and by the time she was 20, her solo record was on the Billboard 200. This was the girl's purpose. However, the same industry that helped Young rise to the top also made her wear all the far down. Her dad died. Then, in 2013, one of her closest friends and bandmates in 36 Mafia, Lord Infamous, overdosed and passed away. She had one death after another, and when the sadness became too much for her to bear, she turned to cocaine. It was much more difficult to ask for assistance because of the success she had achieved. Because asking for assistance was considered a sign of weakness in her world. Furthermore, she could not afford to display weakness. They put up the drill and the music lie detector in your room. Rearranging a few items. They went to the music table in the back that had a lamp on it. Well, I moved the lamp and discovered a baggie with white pottery substitutes next to it. I had no idea what it was. I have no idea who it belongs to. She was kicked out of Marriage Boot Camp, Hip Hop Edition in 2022 after the production staff discovered something powdery and white in music her room. Her goal in going on the show was to mend her relationship. What emerged instead revealed that she was still under the influence of something far larger and older. Lola Mitchell was discovered unresponsive on the front porch of her mother's Memphis house on New Year's Day 2023. Her age was 43. Music. According to the autopsy, she accidentally overdosed on alcohol and cocaine laced with fentanyl. She had been texting Lad a few hours prior to the incident. She even had an entire album prepared, which she referred to as the template. It was never released. When you realize how much she was bearing on her own for all those years, the title of Queen of Memphis takes on a new meaning. Which of these names caught you off guard? Please share your thoughts in the comments area. To view further films similar to this one, click on one of the cards on your screen. See you at the following one.